Hello everyone and welcome again to another episode of Brontë Mania. Today I'd like to take a look at one of Anne Bronte's poems entitled The Consolation, which she wrote on November 7th, 1843 when she was a governess at Thorp Green Hall with the Robinson family. This was her second governess post following her first one, which was with the Ingham family at Blake Hall in Mirfield. But that ended rather badly for her. She was the governess of two young children, and they did not wish to really learn at her hand and were very rebellious, and it was a very difficult first governess position for her, but she tried to learn from that and to do better in her second position, which she obviously did, because as opposed to when at Blake Hall she was only there for about 1 year. She's actually had a 5-year spell at Thorp Green Hall, so that's how she grew into the role. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to click the subscribe button if you want to subscribe to the channel. Also click the share button if you want to share it with others, and also click the notification bell if you subscribe so you receive all the notifications for future content. What I'd like to do now then is to recite from this what I think is a really delightful poem. I think it's actually written in the persona of one of her Gondal characters, which she wrote from childhood onwards. This character's name is Hespera Caverendel, and so yeah, that's a delightful poem written in this character of this Hespera. So it goes like this. Though bleak these woods and damp the ground with fallen leaves so thickly strewn, and cold the wind that wanders round with wild and melancholy moan, there is a friendly roof I know might shield me from the wintry blast. There is a fire whose ruddy glow will cheer me for my wandering past. And so though still where'er I roam could stranger glances meet my eye, but when my spirit sinks in woe, unheeded swells the unbidden sigh. Though solitude endured too long bids youthful joys too soon decay, makes mirth a stranger to my tongue and overclouds my noon of day. When kindly thoughts that would have way flow back discouraged to my breast, I know there is, though far away, a home where heart and soul may rest. Warm hands are there that clasped in mine, the warmer heart will not belie, while mirth and truth and friendship shine in smiling lip and earnest eye. The ice that gathers round my heart may there be thawed, and sweetly then the joys of youth that now depart will come to cheer my soul again. Though far I roam, this thought shall be my hope, my comfort everywhere. While such a home remains to me, my heart shall never know despair. It's a very interesting poem because I think she's written in the character of Hespera, Gondal character, but it's actually quite clear that she's taken a lot from her own experience. You can almost imagine as the opening lines talking about how though bleak these woods and damp the ground with fallen leaves so thickly strewn. She's walking around the grounds of Thorp Green Hall. You can picture that scene, and then she develops in her mind to transpose it into this fictional domain. But later on it's very interesting when she talks about the joys of youth that now depart will come to cheer my soul again. I think that's quite telling because that's her partly looking back to her own time when she was a youth, growing up in Haworth with her brother and sisters and the fun times they had together, and I think she's looking back fondly to those times. Now that she's got to go through this, what must be at times a really hard occupation of a governess, and dealing with children that maybe didn't want to learn or, causing trouble for her. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thought there, I think. But I think this Consolation, who she's the character of Hespera is talking about, I think this is some sort of lover who she knows she would feel a sense of comfort if she was with him rather than in a lonely situation. And it shows you that Anne did suffer from loneliness at times in her occupation as a governess. Not a very easy role, living with a family away from her own family and having to bow down to orders from her employers and having to meet their expectations of how she teaches her children and trying to develop them and make them grow. Another point I'd like to make though is that I probably mentioned this in other videos, but I've actually written a book about Anne Brontë, written in a name where I actually write as her, and that, yeah, as I said before, I think that's a bit weird, but it felt right for me because I have such a strong admiration for her as not only as a writer but as a woman. But in this part of my book I want to read out now, it relates to her first governess post, and it relates back to the world of Gondal because she realises, despite all the trouble she went through at Blake Hall, it made her developed her as a writer because she lived outside her own comfort zone, as it were, and with people that were strangers to her to begin with, and she had to exist in that world. But that helped her become a better writer, and this is what I wrote. I was left with the impression that my time away from home had served another important purpose. It had showed me the importance of sampling new scenery and socialising with different people so that I could broaden my outlook. I very believe it also enabled me to return to my writing with a new perspective, which in turn allowed me to bring a greater believability into my storylines. Yes, I was writing fiction, but there was little doubt in my mind that the period I had spent away from home had progressed my abilities to write with fluidity and depth. I returned home with a real intent to invest my characters with virtues as well as vices, which I knew existed in the outside world. Before I had left Haworth, I had not been so aware of these realities. Being at Blake Hall, as troublesome and as despairing as it had been on occasion, made me look at the world around me in a very different way. I understood what it was to find yourself in a position which held no opportunity to advance one's own cause. I could appreciate from the inside how exasperating it was to exist in a state of inertia, being invested by a belief in one's talents, but also believing they were being wasted. This to me was my situation at Blake Hall in a nutshell. I'd been placed in a situation which had appeared promising when I had first taken up my duties, but from there my enthusiasm had slowly eroded away. In the end I had been forced to come to the conclusion that my time there had been largely a mistake. However, like all mistakes, there was much to learn from it. What had I learnt? I had the faculties needed to become a governess of note, but my talents in this first instance had been misapplied. I needed to work with pupils who truly wished to learn and to find myself in a homestead which was conducive to a body of learning. I did not know whether I would find such a place or indeed whether it even existed, but I was determined to seek it out, cost me what it may. So that's an excerpt from my book, which relates to how Anne developed as a writer and really as a person as well, from experiencing some really tough times in the Blake Hall household, and she was from there able to invest her characters with, made them more well-rounded, shall I say, and writing grew from there as she went on, and in the future when she wrote 2 great novels after that. So that's all for this video. Hope you've enjoyed this content, and I look forward to meeting with you again very soon. Thank you very much for popping by.